The honourable member for Terra Nova, the Peninsulas.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The collapse of our cod fishery was over 30 years ago. Stocks are up, and even commercial fishing has begun. Yet, me and my family can't go out and fish on a Thursday afternoon. Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are fed up and unfed. Other parts of Atlantic Canada can fish 7 days a week. Yet, we are restricted to only weekends. That's why I'm here today with a Bill C-237, the Recreational Food Fishery Equality Bill. This bill does not have a 40-fish limit, but it does do 5 crucial things. It applies the same rules for all Atlantic Canada so that we can catch 5 fish every day of the week during the season like the rest of Atlantic Canada. It encourages the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, commonly known as DFO, to have better enforcement and stricter penalties, to eliminate the few bad apples that just ruin the bunch. It ties the season to spawning dates, avoiding arbitrary regulations. It requires DFO to post any new rule changes online at least 2 months in advance. It encourages the Department of Fisheries to organize a monitoring system to better understand how, when, and where fish are being caught. Newfoundland and Labrador was built on the cod fishery, and the Liberal government needs to recognize that and vote for this bill. They're always talking about the importance of working together to build Canada strong. So this is their chance. This is their opportunity to show Newfoundland and Labrador that we are moving forward. It's our fish, it's our waters, and it's our way of life. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take a minute of clarification. Over the summer, I had many constituents that tell me they wanted to fish 7 days a week. After conversations with industry leaders and locals throughout the riding and province, many of them suggested a system with quotas. So a discussion started about what a possible quota should look like. Many conversations led to 40 fish, or about 80 fillets, which sounded like a reasonable amount to start the conversations. For a family of 3, that's 120 fish, 240 fillets, more than 2 meals a week. So in August, we created a petition. Now, a petition does not change the law, and it does not change policy. It's simply a survey for our district to start conversations. It was evidently clear, very early, that the people of Newfoundland and Labrador were dead set against a 40-fish limit. What they really wanted was to be able to fish 7 days a week, catch 5 fish per day during the whole season like the rest of Atlantic Canada. So I began to work on a bill that done just that. In September 22nd, I tabled this bill. Unfortunately, my petition got caught up in the Canada Post strike and didn't land on people's doors till weeks later, causing mass confusion throughout my riding and the province. But for the people at home, let me be clear. Forget my petition. Read my bill. I think you'll like it. So here's a little bit of history. For hundreds of years, cod was our lifeline. It fed our families, paid our bills, and built our communities. The world came to our shores, and the same fish became the cornerstone of North American colonization. From when Humphrey Gilbert landed in 1583 to 1949, Newfoundland had control of its own fishery. That's nearly 400 years of sustainable fishery. After 1949, Ottawa took control of our fishery. A city with no ocean decided what was best for Newfoundland and Labrador. They used our fishery as a trading chip, allowing foreign trawlers to wreak havoc on our fishery. By the time John Crosbie became Fisheries Minister in 1991, there was nothing left. And while he didn't take the fish out of the water, Ottawa certainly did. Somehow, Ottawa managed to ruin a 400-year sustainable fishery in just 4 decades. Although overfishing in international waters did tremendous damage to northern cod, Canada also failed to maintain sustainable fishery within its 200-mile limit. The government ignored warnings from inshore fishers and university scientists that cod stocks were in danger and chose to maintain quotas instead of scaling back on the fishery. Whole towns shut down overnight when the cod moratorium was announced. Overnight, 30,000 people, plant workers, fishers, and even truck drivers lost their job. Overnight, the largest industrial layoff in Canadian history. Next to 5% of our province's GDP lost their job with a stroke of a pen overnight. When the recreational food fishery reopened in 1998, it was a moment of relief. People finally got back on the water, not to sell, not to get rich, but to provide healthy food for their families. Since then, the recreational food fishery has become one of the most cherished traditions. Hundreds come from across Canada and around the world to spend a few days on the water. Through the early 2000s, a tag system was introduced, requiring us to pay to receive tags. Yes, pay. Imagine that. Ottawa ruins our fishery, then makes us pay them to receive 30 tags. This system was despised by Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, who viewed this as bureaucratic and certainly unfair, given our long tradition of fishing to feed our families. After many protests, petitions, and outcries, DFO finally allowed us to catch fish on weekends, limiting us 5 fish per day. That sounds great, until you realize that other parts of Atlantic Canada can fish 7 days a week. So here we are, stuck on land during blue skies and calm waters, while our families are lined up at food banks. So here's a glimpse of the current system, Mr. Speaker. In 2025, the food fishery ran only for 45 days, with a daily limit of 5 fish. With a doctor's note, some seniors and people with mobility issues could get someone to fish their fish for them. And this year, a new pilot program was implemented for tour boat operators. Tour boats could provide a license and 2 tags, allowing passengers to catch 2 fish each. Now, here's where things go wrong. Firstly, 45 days open does not mean 45 days fishing. If anyone here has ever been to Newfoundland, you'll quickly find out that we have immense fog, high winds, and high waves. Many people in my riding are struggling to buy groceries and are forced to go out and face that danger because they can't go out on a Thursday afternoon to catch a codfish to feed their family. We have lost thousands of people in Newfoundland at sea, and we do not need Newfoundlanders and Labradorians continuing to risk their lives just to put food on the table. Secondly, the government partially realizes the economic value of tourism fishing. But what is interesting is that these tour boat operators, oddly enough, are allowed to fish 7 days a week. To me, this sets a great precedent, a precedent that we should all be allowed to fish 7 days a week. Additionally, many of our tourists are Newfoundlanders and Labradorians who have moved away working and now wants to come home for a week of deep sea fishing, but oftentimes decide not to come home because finding a weekend with good weather is almost impossible. Imagine the amount of Newfoundlanders who will want to come home from Alberta and everywhere else in this world where they can catch a fish 7 days a week. The economic value of that is almost unimaginable. Thirdly, and most importantly, we can only catch fish 3 days a week, while the rest of Atlantic Canada can catch fish 7 days a week. And here are the stats, Mr. Speaker. By the early 1990s, after decades of unsustainable fishing, the northern cod stocks collapsed. The spawning biomass of northern cod had dropped by 93% in only 30 years, from 1.6 million tons in 1962 to 100,000 tons in 1992. But things are on the rise since the moratorium. By 2024, the cod biomass has moved out of the critical zone and into the cautious zone, the highest levels in decades. Ottawa agrees that there is more fish in the waters, and the evidence is that the northern cod quota has doubled. The total allowable catch for 2025 northern cod has been set to 38,000 tons, which is more than double the 2024 quota of 18,000 tons. Meanwhile, the recreational food fishery only consumes 2,500 tons a year. Compared to the 38,000 commercial tons, it's peanuts. And many people say that more fish are dying from natural causes than what is harvested in the recreational food fishery. And the biggest thing to keep in mind is this. The seals are estimated to be eating 9.7 billion tons of fish a year. It doesn't take a calculator to see that the easiest way to restore a fishery is harvest more seals, not starve more Newfoundlanders and Labradorians.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Now, let's talk about a monitoring system. This bill directs the minister to create, within 1 year, a new monitoring system. It should record the number of fish caught by species, as well as the time and place. It should use modern tools and best practices. It should be funded where possible by existing fees and penalties. It should be reward compliance, not punishment, with incentives for timely reporting. This data can be used to improve science and help determine fish patterns and quantities. And we see similar reporting systems to this in Newfoundland and Labrador with our moose hunting return slips. The monitoring system should be developed by conversations with locals. Too often we see that decisions are made way too far from the wharves and coves that they affect. And Mr. Speaker, this bill isn't just about fish. It's about respect for Newfoundland and Labrador. For far too long, our people have felt like an afterthought in Ottawa's decisions. We've seen our shipyards sit idle, our oil projects stalled, our mines closed down, and our seal fishery laughed at. And now, even our food fishery, the simplest, most traditional act of all, is tangled up in red tape that no one else in Atlantic Canada has to deal with. This bill does say it all. It says that we will no longer be treated as an exemption. It says that we will deserve the same opportunities and the same respect as our neighbours. And I want to talk about another part: stability, predictability, and respect. One of the new clauses adds a line in the Fisheries Act recognizing the importance of stability and predictability for those who engage in recreational fishing for groundfish. Now, this might sound like a lot of bureaucratic language, but in plain English, it means this: people deserve to know the rules and know when the season opens. When a man or woman hauls a boat down to a slipway, they shouldn't have to wonder if this is the weekend it's going to open. We should all know well in advance. Fisheries management should be rooted in science and in fairness, not politics and not frustration. When I travel my district and around the province, I see that what this fishery means to people. I see grandpas teaching grandsons how to tie lures. I see grandmas teaching grandkids how to fillet cod. I see families hanging out together and heading out on the water just as the sun pulls up over the ocean. You can't put a price on that. That's culture. That's identity. That's Newfoundland and Labrador. So when Ottawa tries to limit that, it doesn't just take away our opportunity, it takes away who we are. Mr. Speaker, my bill is not a partisan bill. It's not Liberal. It's not Conservative. It's not NDP. It's Newfoundland and Labrador. So I hope at the very least I'll have my colleagues from Newfoundland and Labrador join us in voting for this bill, because it's all about all of Atlantic Canada standing together for fairness. We talk a lot in this House about mental health of Canadians. The whole country contributes to important initiatives like Bell Let's Talk and other mental health initiatives that emphasize the importance of people connecting, especially men connecting with other men. Mr. Speaker, some of the toughest and warmest conversations men have happen on the water. Many of the toughest conversations, the ones you don't want anyone else to hear, are the ones that happen in between the "I got one" moments. These are the conversations that have guided my life, whether it be with my father, my grandfather, or my uncle. A good day on the water can change a man, improve a man, and improving our outlook on life. In the same way, it's a way for daughters to connect with fathers, and quite frankly, for the whole family and communities to connect. The fish don't care what your problems are, what gender you are, or what race you are. It's a safe space where Newfoundlanders and Labradorians get together, sometimes returning from all around the world to talk, to laugh, and to heal. Mr. Speaker, to restore equality, we need these Liberals and all members of this House to vote for this bill. Let's pass this bill. Let's give Newfoundlanders and Labradorians the same opportunities as our Atlantic neighbours. Because, Mr. Speaker, back home, the fishery runs deeper than the ocean. It runs through our veins. It's our fish. It's our waters. It's our way of life. Thank you very much.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. On a député de Acadie Bathurst.
Member for Acadie Bathurst.
My colleague for his speech. Look, my dad was a fisherman all his life. I'm pretty sure he's watching right now, so I say aye. But Mr. Speaker, when I look closely at the bill, there's something in that maybe Newfoundlanders should ask question. Right now, Mr. Speaker, there's no fee of any kind on recreational fishery, no fee at all. When the members talk, he's talk about a monitoring system. So this bill actually proposes a monitoring system for the recreational fisheries. Monitoring system that will probably add cost to it. So when you think about it, Mr. Speaker, we can actually say that it's a tax on food, or in this case, a tax on fish. So did the member actually talk to his leader about this new tax on food or tax on fish, Mr. Speaker? Thank you.
The member for Terra Nova, the Peninsulas.
So this is an imaginary tax. There is no fees on catching codfish right now, and nor do I want there to be. In my speech, which I'm sure the member across the way just heard, I said that we should pay for this monitoring system if it costs anything. Perhaps it doesn't cost anything at all. We can work through that in committee. Pay for that through stricter penalties and more fines and catching these bad apples that are making it bad for the bunch. There's no reason to be forcing people to pay for this monitoring system. But this imaginary tax is nothing more than imaginary.
Question et commentaire, l'honorable député de Saint.
The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot. Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to mention that the Bloc will be supporting this bill because we're against Ottawa's intrusion into provincial jurisdictions and Quebec jurisdiction. I was just wondering whether my colleague knew whether he had any knowledge of the Quebec fisheries, and that would help if he could give an answer about that.
Yes, they're allowed to fish every day of the week there.
Yeah. To my understanding, Mr. Speaker, Quebec is have the same rules as most of the rest of Atlantic Canada right now, able to fish 7 days a week, 5 fish limit. And that's what Newfoundland is asking for. They have the same as Quebec and the same as the rest of Atlantic Canada. I'm very happy to hear that the Bloc is going to be supporting this bill, and I really appreciate his support.
I can't ask you questions.
Questions and comments, the honourable member for Peace River Westlock.
Mr. Speaker, under the Liberals, fishing has been put at risk kind of clear across the country through their the management areas that they've been putting in place across the country. I'm just wondering if the honourable colleague, I know that his bill doesn't say anything about the marine protected areas, but I'm wondering if he has any comments about that as well.
The honourable member for Terra Nova, the Peninsulas.
Mr. Speaker, we're looking at a situation right now where the Liberal government is proposing to take 30% of our ocean by 2030 to turn it to a marine protected area. Then by 2050, they're planning on taking 50% of our ocean into a marine protected area. Whew, that's a lot of ocean. So I want to take a stand that we be able to have a recreational food fishery in all marine protected areas. I'm not sure these Liberals have the same commitment, and I would like to see them commit to that going forward in marine protected areas, that they would commit to the food fishery, being able to have the food fishery in those areas. Thank you.
It's the honourable member for Egmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I listened intently to the honourable member's speech, and he referenced the nonpartisan. So my question is nonpartisan. The bill speaks for itself. My question is, could the member advise the House who he consulted with? Did he consult with fisher organizations prior to drafting this particular bill? And if so, could he identify those to the House? Thank you.
The honourable member for Terra Nova, the Peninsulas.
Mr. Speaker, when you're in Newfoundland and Labrador, it doesn't take you don't have to go very far to cross paths with a fisherman or a fisherwoman, and I really don't have to go far to find people that participate in a recreational food fishery. Almost everyone in my riding, almost everyone in our province, everyone in the members' ridings across the way, if they don't participate, their close families and relatives does. And I have had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of conversations throughout my riding and throughout my province by the people that elected me, people that elected the other Conservatives here, about how to go forward. And I really appreciate all the people at home that gave us their feedback so we could get here today. Thank you.
Resuming debate. Prise de débat. The honourable member for Labrador.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak on Private Members Bill 237, an act to amend the Fisheries Act. As a Labradorian, I know how important the fishery is to the people of Newfoundland, Labrador, and Atlantic Canada and Quebec. Not just for our livelihoods of harvesters and workers in our province, but for our economy. As a Labradorian and a Newfoundlander, the recreational food fishery is essential to who we are as a province and as a people. It's more than a tradition. It's a connection we share with the water and with those who came before us. This is my biggest concern about Bill C-237. It ignores fishers. It creates without meaningful consultation with those who have invested the most. Our recreational fishers have already spoke up. They have serious concerns about this bill. They were not consulted. Why did the members opposite ignore those directly impacted by this particular bill. In the coming days, the Minister of Fisheries will launch the Newfoundland and Labrador food fishery consultations. This was a commitment she made when announcing the food fishery this year. Newfoundlanders and Labradorians deserve to have their say. Mr. Speaker, these planned consultations will offer all recreational fishers the opportunity to share their thoughts on how we can improve the recreational food fishery. On this side of the House, we listen to fishers and believe in scientific stock-based management of our fisheries. Scientific stock-based management works and has led to the reopening of the northern cod fishery in Newfoundland and Labrador for the first time since the cod moratorium in 1993. The moratorium is a hurt that everyone in my province still feels deeply, and we cannot risk making that mistake again. Bill C-237 will create one fishing season across all of Atlantic Canada and changes the management of fisheries to species-based rather than stock-based. This creates this potential situation where total allowable catches and bycatch levels for commercial fisheries could seriously be affected. Bill C-237 threatens the entire commercial fishing industry in Atlantic Canada and, yes, Mr. Speaker, in Quebec, risking thousands of Canadian jobs and billions of dollars to our economy. Let's look at some examples where this is the case. On the west coast of Newfoundland and Labrador, fishers have sacrificed to help rebuild the NAFO area for our northern Gulf cod stock, which remains under commercial moratorium today. That moratorium also applies to Area 4S, adjacent to La Basse-Côte Nord of Quebec. But Bill C-237 would increase fishing pressure on that stock, removing more fish from the water than we currently do. That's a slap in the face to those commercial harvesters in Labrador, in Quebec, and in Newfoundland, who haven't been able to fish for these past number of years. This bill takes away the ability to balance the opportunities for recreational fishers and commercial harvesters. It uses a one-size-fits-all approach that will have serious consequences for our commercial fishers who earn their living from the ocean. And for a commercial fishery like Atlantic halibut in the province of Quebec, Gulf cod is caught as a bycatch in that fishery. This bill increases the fishing pressure on that bycatch, and the only place to take it from will be from those commercial fishers. So what does that mean to the $100 million halibut fishery in Quebec, in Labrador? This member's bill doesn't care about that because it's the one-size-fits-all, according to the member from Terra Nova, the Peninsulas. The bill has an existential threat to the fishery and the harvesters in coastal communities that it supports. Let's also talk about the emerging redfish Unit 1 fishery. Northern Gulf cod are also caught as a bycatch in that fishery. So like the Atlantic halibut worth $100 million, we are going to increase pressure on the Northern Gulf cod. Our redfish Unit 1 fishery will also be impacted, and that certainly also impacts my colleagues from Quebec in the Bloc Québécois. The issues that Bill C-231 creates around bycatch for our commercial fishery cannot be overstated. At a time when Canadians are looking to their government to grow our economy, to help Canadians, Bill C-237 risks one of the largest economic drivers in Atlantic Canada, our commercial fishery. By changing to the species-based fisheries management and singular seasons across Atlantic Canada and Quebec, Bill C-237 will affect the ability to simultaneously support advancing Indigenous fisheries alongside the recreational and the commercial fisheries. That means worse outcomes for both our Indigenous fishers and our non-Indigenous fishers. Bill C-237 will create more and new red tape and administrative costs downloaded to the recreational fishers and puts those burdens solely on the recreational fishers themselves. This bill would demand an entirely new monitoring system just for recreational fishers and forces Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and all Atlantic Canadians to record their catch from the recreational fishery. And how does this bill look to offset these costs administratively? and for the red tape, fees on the fishers will be passed from this bill downloaded to the recreational fishers. This bill clearly says that to offset these costs, the government will cover the administrative cost of the monitoring system by fees and penalties that are required to be paid under the Fisheries Act. That means license fees, plain and simple. This bill is a conservative tax on food. There are no two ways about it. A conservative tax on food. It's a conservative tax on those who are simply looking for a fish to feed themselves and their family, as they have for generations. This year, the food fishery in Newfoundland and Labrador, in Atlantic Canada, and in Quebec had no license requirement. There was no license fee, and there was no reporting requirements. Just follow the rules, be safe on the ocean, and fish for food. After all, it's a huge part of our culture. Under the conservative tax on food bill, food fishers in Newfoundland, Labrador, Quebec, and the rest of Atlantic Canada will now need a mandatory license, pay a fee to cover the cost of this bill, and must report every fish they catch through an unspecific system, which will also cost them money to use, almost like the e-log system. While our government is providing tax relief to millions of Canadians and working to build a strong economy, Conservative members are putting forward legislation that threatens the economy for every Atlantic Canadian and makes Newfoundlanders and Labradorians pay to participate in the food fishery. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, I cannot support Bill C-237, and I urge my fellow members in this House to vote no to this bill. Say no to a conservative tax on food. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm proud to stand here today and second Bill C-237 on behalf of my colleague from Terra Nova to Peninsulas. This piece of legislation has been long awaited. The people of Newfoundland and Labrador have been crying out for better access to the recreational food fishery for codfish, Mr. Speaker. It's a massive part of our culture and has been for hundreds of years, as my colleague from Terra Nova to Peninsulas mentioned earlier. You know, Newfoundlanders and Labradorians that go away to the mainland, they return, they're almost like expats, but they come home, that summer migration. They come home to fish codfish, as their families have done for generations. It's in their blood. It's a massive, massive part of their culture, Mr. Speaker. But you know what? Over the last 10 years, we've been up until the end of June before the Minister of Fisheries would even let us know what the dates and the regulations for those fishing days in the season would be. So a couple of years ago, I sponsored a petition that went on for 30 days. We collected 3,900 names on an electronic petition to remove the regulation that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians were only allowed to fish 3 days a week on the weekends. And I heard my colleague from Labrador, as he so vehemently expressed his opposition to this bill. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind him that he has a couple of communities on that coast. We've got Lanse-Claire and we've got Blanc-Sablon, not too far apart. One community in Newfoundland and Labrador, one community in Quebec. There's an imaginary line. His constituents are only allowed to fish 3 days per week. And he's quite proud of it, Mr. Speaker, to the way he represents his constituents, that they can't have the same access as their neighbors down the road. So that's very odd to me, that they hear a gentleman of his stature to stand up and make these statements and these claims. So this bill will enshrine the rights of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians in legislation to give them fair access as their counterparts throughout Atlantic Canada and in Quebec. What else does it do, Mr. Speaker? Getting rid of those 3-day weekends adds a safety bonus to our fishery, because for some reason fishers tend to feel pressured. They've got to go out and fish Saturday, Sunday, Monday, if they can, if the weather's good enough at all and safe enough. Sometimes it's questionable, but they don't know what the next weekend's going to be like, or the weekend. I've seen periods in the summer where they've completely lost 3 weekends in a row. So how's that fair to someone who spends $5,000 on a vacation to come to Newfoundland to take part in the recreational food fishery to not even get a day? It's happened. It's happened lots. Another aspect of this bill, Mr. Speaker, is that, for folks who want to catch some fish for food for the table, the South Coast is different than the Northeast Coast and the West Coast. The fish migrate to various parts of the coast at different times of the year. So for people on the South Coast in Hermitage Bay, in the riding that I'm so privileged to represent, or in Placentia Bay, where my colleague represents, Mr. Speaker, these are bays where the cod migrate into winter, long past the closure of the recreational food fishery. So for them to have an ample opportunity to take part to catch some cod for the winter, they need to be able to fish at a different time. And as well, on the West Coast, the fish migrate to the land in the fall or in the spring. The summertime is just the worst time of all. And on the Northeast Coast, Mr. Speaker, we have a very proud hunting tradition called tur hunting. And that starts up around the 1st of November. And, the fellows want to go out and hunt some turs, drop a jigger overboard, bring home a fresh fish for the table.
There we go.
Can't do it.
What?
Unbelievable. It needs to end. So we've been promised this review by the minister, now announced by the member for Labrador on her behalf. But we were promised that back in June. People are asking, where's the review? When is the review? When are we going to hear about it? Even the Fisheries broadcast asked me not long ago, well, when is this review taking place? I said, well, I don't know. It was starting to get into broken promise territory there, but anything that we can do to push the minister in the right direction, we always try. But the direction sometimes, and we've seen decisions before, and I heard the colleague from Labrador talk about how they listen to the fishers, and the fishers have been begging for a mackerel fishery all summer, and I see the minister over there smiling. Maybe she's going to announce it after I sit down here. Yeah. I apologize.
You just left.
I didn't mean to tell that someone was actually here. Maybe it's a figment of my imagination here. Who knows? I also heard the member for Labrador criticize his government policy on bringing in e-logs. So that was refreshing to see that they don't all agree with the really ridiculous policies that they have over there. And my colleague was questioned about the consultations that he's made. But we're consulting with our people all the time. These recreational cod fishers, they're stakeholders in the recreational cod fishery. But one big beef that the Fish Food and Allied Workers Unions had over the years is that they can't quantify how much codfish is taken during the recreational food fishery. So I don't know why Liberal members across the way would be proud of not knowing how much fish that we're taking out of the ocean. How can you manage what you can't count? You have to know. Knowledge is power. This expansion and revision to the period of fishing and for cod will help fill a gap, Mr. Speaker, in science, because now people can go out in October if it's a nice day, or November, or even December if that's what they feel like doing. If they want to go out on Christmas Eve and catch a fresh fish for their Christmas Eve dinner, if it's a calm day and that's what they feel like doing, they'd be able to do it. So we're going to find out how the fish are migrating, when they're there, how long they're there. All of this data will be wonderful knowledge if there's any science department left after yesterday's budget, Mr. Speaker. So the threat to the biomass is extremely low. We've had a study that just came out of Memorial University Center for Fisheries and Ecosystem Research that's stating 24 times more codfish is eaten by harp seals, just harp seals. Never mind the hoods, or the greys, or the bearded, or the harbor. All of these species, just talking harps, 24 times more removals by harp seals alone than entire fisheries. So this expansion of fishing opportunity poses no threat to the cod biomass and to the recovery as we move forward. So I call on the member for Labrador and the member for St. John's East, the member for Cape Spear and the member for Avalon to do what their constituents have been begging them to do. The member for Labrador was very adamant that they listen. They listen. Well, if they listen, the time's to do what they've been asked to do. Instead of having eyes that don't see and ears that don't hear, now's the time to do the right thing for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, give fair access and match the access throughout Atlantic Canada and Quebec. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for St. John, St. Croix.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And look, I want to rise on this fascinating bill. And I got to say, every time I hear a group of MPs from Newfoundland and Labrador, my vocabulary always expands a little bit. They throw around some terms, whether it's fishing or hunting, that are unknown in the rest of the country. So it's always interesting. And that's what I've noticed since the member for Central Newfoundland came on the scene here in Parliament just 4 years ago. A caucus that was virtually unknown, the Liberal caucus from Newfoundland and Labrador, hardly ever spoke a word in this chamber, it seemed. And with that one member, suddenly the debate changed in this chamber, and we began hearing all about important Newfoundland and Labrador issues. And I remember the member would stand up in the last Parliament and shame his members, his counterparts on the other side on issues they weren't addressing in this Parliament. And then I hear today the member from Terra Nova, the Peninsula, again getting up. And already he's had some success in his bill just by tabling it. The government has announced a review on this very, very issue. So we're seeing great success on an issue that matters to members from Newfoundland and Labrador. And of course, there's a third member as well from Long Range Mountains who is no shrinking violet as well. So a trio. And you can see why the Conservative representation in Newfoundland and Labrador is just growing and growing. And I know we're going to see strength and growth there in the years ahead because of this representation. And I learned long ago when I was first elected that if you want to know what's happening in the fisheries, you don't go to DFO, like the member from Labrador has clearly done. You go down to the end of the dock and you talk to the men and women who fish our waters, and you find out what's going on, what's working, what's not, and more importantly, how to fix it. And that is exactly what my two colleagues today from Newfoundland have done by bringing forth this important issue, speaking to on behalf of their constituents on a matter that is so important to them. And I understand it. And what a lot of, I think, people in this town and the bureaucracy does not understand is the weather does not always cooperate. The environment does not always cooperate. And that you need flexibility when it comes to not just a resource, but something that members in our communities in Atlantic Canada have done long before Canada was Canada, long before the founding of this country, and certainly for hundreds of years before Newfoundland and Labrador came into Confederation. So it is so exhilarating to have members come to this place and make principled and passionate arguments about bills like this and how it impacts communities and people back home. We're going through an affordability crisis. What better way to help families back home, to give them the option to go fishing, to provide for their families and their communities, which is what began to build Newfoundland and Labrador hundreds of years ago. And so in that spirit, I have to applaud the members for bringing this bill forward and speaking to their communities, on behalf of their communities, and advancing this. And I think we're going to see a win here. You can just tell that when the government begins to pre-position consultation on a bill that a new member has brought before this House, and I have to say, he's been here just a few months and he already can score a win that he's forced the government to act. And we're going to keep pushing this bill through Parliament, and I think we're going to chip away. And I know my 3 colleagues from Newfoundland and Labrador won't just debate it here, they're going to take it home. And they're going to fight it in the towns, in the communities, in the ridings, on the airs, on social media, and they're going to shame their colleagues to convince more of them to vote for this bill. So I applaud their hard work. At some point, if we have more of these debates, we might need a 3rd translation channel so we can get all the local terms from Newfoundland and Labrador understood here in this chamber. And I look forward to that, Mr. Speaker, and I look forward to this debate continuing very, very soon. Thank you very much.